Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Stevens, and we want to welcome you to another edition of Inspiring Conversations. I have the privilege of being the founding co-director of the Inspired Leadership Initiative here at Notre Dame. As many of you know, it's a program that offers the opportunity for accomplished people who have finished their traditional careers to come to Notre Dame for a year and to pursue an area of study of their choosing and engage with students and faculty as a mentor with the overall goal of becoming an even greater force for good in their communities. You can learn more about ILI by checking out our website, ili.nd.edu. Partnering with the Alumni Association and Think ND, our theme this semester is Transforming Lives and Lives Transformed, with the focus on three critical and timely topics: pursuing a second act, the intersection of spirituality and leadership, and solving societal problems. Our guest today has had a tremendous impact transforming young lives and servicing those who need support in his community. John Ebert is a 1982 Notre Dame grad where he was a pitcher on the Fighting Irish baseball team. Accepting an auditor position in Dallas with Arthur Young, John rose quickly through the ranks with distinguished work with several major clients, and he loved his work. But something was gnawing inside of him that he wanted to build something. In his free time, he studied all kinds of business and franchise opportunities, and he finally decided to pursue becoming a McDonald's franchisee, requiring him to quit his job and work 2,000 unpaid hours in McDonald's restaurants to earn a spot on the waiting list for a franchisee, but with no guarantees. Now owner of 40 McDonald's franchisees, employing more than 2,000 employees, John's leadership philosophies and practices have served him, his family, and his company well through the pandemic. John Ebert, it is great to see you again, my friend.
Chris, thanks for having me, and it's great to be with you. It's great to talk to your classes. So what I'll do is go ahead and walk everyone through my journey and some of the leadership things that I've learned. I'll go ahead and share my screen to do that. Okay, so Chris talked about some of the risks, but I will tell you that my risk was reduced greatly. And I really got hooked up with a great brand that had a strong customer focus. And I will tell you, in the last 30 years since I've been an operator, I've really realized that, the great leadership at the top, whether it's Chris Kay or Joe Erlinger, and even Jan Fields, they really are focused on the customer, and I've been blessed to do that. I also reduced my risk significantly in the fact that I realized I needed to win with people. And by developing a strong team, my life has become very much easier. So I'll walk you through my journey here. So I have a wonderful family, real sports related. My wife has done numerous triathlons, and Cindy has a lot of high school track records. And I have Rachel and I have Jack, who goes to WVU. He actually got a football scholarship to a small college, but now goes to WVU. And my daughter Grace is a sophomore at Notre Dame and an all-state tennis player in high school. I love doing triathlons as well, and it's something I enjoy. The good thing about getting older, it's about the only good thing, is that as you get older, there's a lot fewer people in your age group if you want to try to compete to win something. But it's been good to keep me in shape. So on my 60th birthday, I gave myself a present and did a bunch of things with 6 or 60s. Ran 6 miles, did 6 pull-ups, 60 push-ups, and so forth. But I culminated with a 60-mile bike ride. So I really enjoy working out. I also played baseball at Notre Dame, but also I was a tutor. And I remember one time having 20 hours and getting $100. That was a lot of money back then. But a funny story on tutoring. Once I got a 68 in auditing as a senior out of 70, but they forgot to convert the score, and I'm out tutoring someone, and Father Bennis from Pangbourne comes over and says, "Where's John? I got a pink slip for him." And he said he's out tutoring, and Father Bennis said to my roommate, "I think John needs some tutoring." So, but it was great to be part of a great program at Notre Dame with respect to tutoring. They really keep athletes focused and so forth. And Father really was in Pangbourne, a very familiar person to a lot of people within Notre Dame. Also, another Notre Dame connection I have is my nephew, James Navant. was the captain of the baseball team back in 2016. He now works for Goldman Sachs. So I've been blessed to be associated with three great brands, and literally they're all golden in my mind. Notre Dame, Arthur Young, who is now Ernst & Young, and McDonald's. And these are some of the learnings that I had through my journey. First, again, Notre Dame was a great brand alignment. No matter where you go, people realize it's just a wonderful school, and it certainly is. I did learn also about the power of positive thinking at Notre Dame. So I'm on the baseball team. They probably recruited about 7 pitchers, and it's about halfway through the season. I still hadn't pitched, but I was reading the book, The Power of Positive Thinking, and I felt so confident. I felt like I was the best player on the team, and I hadn't even played. So we're beating the team like 8-1, and the coach says, you're going to go ahead and pitch the next inning. And I remember going out there, and I can still get that feeling looking at the catcher right now. I felt so confident. I felt like Nolan Ryan, just because I had positive mental outlook. And sure enough, I pitched wonderfully. And I really attributed it to just positive mindset. We always talk about ants, not to have automatic negative thoughts. And I certainly didn't then, but I really think that helped a lot. Also at Notre Dame as a junior, we're taking intermediate accounting, and there's a chance to take either Easy A. Abraham, you'd learn things and probably get an A, or Jim Gatner. And Gatner was one of the most challenging accounting professors, and you learn the most. No doubt you want to get good grades, get a good job, but I thought, this is going to be my profession. So I took Gatner and certainly learned a lot from that thought process. I also learned maybe my junior year, especially on some of these technical classes, go ahead and read in advance before the teacher presented it. And that certainly helped my study time. And they'd ask questions about accounting, and I knew all the answers. Everyone thought I was real smart in accounting. Get the test back, had about the average score, but I was prepared in advance, and it certainly saved me a lot. And it's been beneficial in my workload as well. Interestingly, in Pangbourne, where I lived next door to John Paxson. There's actually a picture of Chris and Paxson in the center. Paxson here on the right, and if you guys watched The Last Dance, he certainly represented Notre Dame and us well. And there's actually a picture of Chris on the left dunking on Bill Walton. Just talking to Chris, I heard he still dunked until he was almost 51. So that's quite an accomplishment. And if you've ever been on campus with him, you walk around and people are saying Hawk, Hawk, Hawk. That was his nickname because he could jump so well. So Chris, thanks for all those wonderful memories. After McDonald's, or after Notre Dame, I went to work for Arthur Young in Dallas. It was the second great brand association. So I go from Notre Dame to Arthur Young. We had great clients in Dallas: Hager Slacks, Frito-Lay, American Airlines, and Texas Stadium. And here I actually am at Texas Stadium. We actually did the accounting at Texas Stadium. And it was kind of antiquated, but it was a good experience. I was the senior accountant on Bumbright's purchase from Murchison back in 1984, and certainly learned a lot. And out of box thinking, the first time I'd really been exposed to this, and no pun intended here, when they came in and bought Texas Stadium, they decided to put skyboxes in, $1 million skyboxes on the 50-yard line that Republic Bank bought one, and so forth. It was the first time where I saw someone come in and kind of transform the business. The ironic part about it is they had to displace 2,000 seats. That caused a lot of headache because some of these season ticket holders got displaced. But it was interesting on their revenue model. I continue to learn at Arthur Young. I passed the CPA exam, the 3 hardest parts of the CMA exam. But as Chris mentioned, I did want to own my own business. I was thinking about possibly going to an MBA school, but I wanted to own up my own business. So I'm working on an S1, so we're taking the company public. And what happened back, this is 40 years ago, I'm not sure what they do now, is we're working on the documents, we get the changes, we send them into the printer. And while they're in the printer, you literally have dead time. So we're watching TV and they're talking about franchising. And I thought, what is the hardest franchise to own? Is that worth giving it a shot? So after we're done, I buy the book Behind the Golden Arches, written by John Love, and read about McDonald's. I decide I'm going to try to get in the McDonald's training program to buy a McDonald's. And sure enough, I get in. And as Chris mentioned, this is some of the stuff I had to go through. First of all, I had to make a 2,000-hour commitment with no guarantee. You could go through the program, and I've had some people go through the program. It just hasn't worked out, or they haven't found a store they liked. In retrospect, the 2,000 hours was brilliant on their part because you learn about the business. You know, I learned how to clean the restrooms. I learned how to hire people and so forth. Financially, they wanted to make sure you weren't thinly capitalized, so I had to have a $200,000 payment. Now I'm at this point 27 years old, and I saved about 60 to 65,000. My parents stepped up and gave me the rest. Everything they literally had, other than their house, that was a liquid asset, they gave to me. So now I have $200,000. During the training process, I used to have to get up at 4 o'clock on Saturday and drive 45 minutes to Grapevine and open the restaurant. I was the opening manager. You know, you'd get there and kids are sleeping in their car. You wake them up and would open it up. I mean, it was a good learning experience. You know, I had to get out of my comfort zone. You know, you're used to being an accountant, sitting down, working in your office. Now I am doing something completely different and willing to move. You know, I had season tickets to the Cowboys, to the Mavericks, into West Virginia, but it's been a great move. I've certainly met my wife here, and it's been a great place to raise a family. So I go to the 4 schools. I ended up getting a degree from Hamburger University. So now I have a degree from Hamburger University and a degree from Notre Dame. And this is one time the Hamburglar takes over from the Irishman. So I'm owning the McDonald's, and we're about, you know, maybe 7, 8 years in. I have 5 stores doing pretty well. You know, not really developing my people to the extent. And it's about this time, maybe 23 years ago, over the Easter break, where we come out with this Furby Happy Meal. And this thing, other than Beanie Babies, was just so popular. I mean, these customers are coming in our restaurants. We are running out of food left and right in our stores. And I couldn't borrow enough from the local or my local stores. You know, sometimes you can borrow if you're missing here and there. I was traveling all over the state getting food. And at this point, I just said, this is not going to work long term. I need to develop my people. I need to have stronger leadership skills so that they can dig in and care as much about my business as they do. So we do. I mean, every Tuesday at 2 o'clock, we get together and talk about the business, have key numbers, key indicators, and so forth. We started a program where I get 12 of the next leaders, the next generation. We sit down and have 10 weeks of classes, read books together like the Energy Bus, talk about our business. They have access to me for a good 60 to 90 minutes. And we do this 3 times a year. So it has really helped on our leadership and really helped them engaged in my business. So I've had a couple big decisions to get to 40 stores. First, the big one was, you know, do you leave Arthur Young? You know, if you put the time value to money, I probably was making, when I left there, maybe $100,000. You know, do I leave for McDonald's and own my own business? But I wanted to own something, to build something. And it's obviously worked out better than I ever expected. Was there risk involved? There was, but it was pretty calculated. I certainly had the support of a strong business behind me. I just had to execute and deliver at the store level. So some of the drivers of our business, I'll take you back to 2019 pre-pandemic, is we just really, our goal was 100 million in sales. I'm not sure if anyone's read the book OKRs by John Doerr. It talks about big round numbers. So our goal was 100 million. This is 2019. Ironically, you know, we're pushing for it. We're a little behind in December. The weather is good in December. And now we come into the 31st. We made it within 2 hours. And typically we close at 9 o'clock on New Year's Eve. I was thinking about staying open longer, but there just wasn't any business, but we made it within 2 hours. You know, post-pandemic last year, we got close to 100 million again, if you can believe it. So our business rebounded, and I'll talk a little bit after we get through this journey with Chris about some of the things that we've done with COVID and so forth. But let me talk to you, probably the key crux of this early presentation is that we are heavily involved with the community. We actually won the Al Golan Award, which is only given to one operator in the whole country 4 years ago for our involvement with brand McDonald's in the community. But there's 4 stories I'd like to share with you. First, Emily King, our baseball clinic, leadership grit, and a game changer. First on Emily King. Emily is a senior at Bridgeport or at Philip Barber High School. And we have a ACT prep class. We've had over 3,000 kids come to it. It's free and it helps kids get the promised scholarship. But her stakes were even higher. She wanted to get into a 6-year medical program at Marshall, right out of a direct entry, right out of high school. And so Emily is having a hard time with math. She has close to 36 in everything but math, and she needs a 27 in math to get into this program. So sure enough, her mother calls me and I said, yes, send her over to my house, because a lot of times I do personal tutoring. So Emily comes to my house on Sunday about 4 or 5 times. You know, feels like she's fairly well prepared, goes in and takes the test. Here's the text I get from her mother. Emily got her ACT. She got a 26 in math, increasing 2 points. Being a type A personality, she's devastated. The accelerated program requires a 27. There's only 2 more tests before the deadline. Her mother calls me and says, Emily is done. She can't do it. She is so burnt out on this test, she cannot do it. I say, we're not going to give up. She's going to come back. We're going to do it. You know, she, settles down, and sure enough, she comes back probably another 4 times to my house, and we are just so focused on this. And she ends up going and takes the test and gets a 28. This is the text I get from her mother after she applies to the medical program. Emily just received her letter. She made it. She's been accepted into the accelerated program. Thank you very much for your support. This is a $250,000 free scholarship, literally. I went down to see Emily. She says, I say to her, you're going to be my doctor one day, Emily. She said, I'll make sure I do a great job. I'll make sure you live forever. So that was a great win on the program. Again, we've had 3,000 kids come through the ACT prep class. We also came to Jordan Auditorium. This is my lovely daughter, Grace. She did most of the teaching here at Notre Dame in 17 and 18, and we'll do it again once this pandemic slows down. We also have free baseball clinics. My mother said to me, John, you're doing all the stuff you enjoyed in high school. We are, and we have a free clinic for everyone once a year. And what happens is we get high school kids, and they teach younger 10 and 11-year-old kids. We've done it so long, the 10 and 11-year-old kids that were younger are now teaching the younger kids. So it's come full cycle. And there are times where I wonder, should I do this another year? And I'm sitting there and a parent will come up to me and say, hey, my son did not sleep at all last night. He was so excited about coming. So we'll do it, and we'll continue to do it. As a 60-year-old out playing catch with some of these kids is a little challenging, but a lot of fun. We have a leadership grit class that we put on for 8th graders free. We bring kids in. We get top-notch speakers like George West, Andrew Hendricks from our area that just deliver a tremendous message to these 8th graders. So that's been a real win and very much appreciated by the community. I also am recently involved with Game Changers. Game Changers is the brainchild of Don Robinson, and Joe Bosick has really pushed this thing hard. It's probably one of our biggest not financial, but just things that we face in West Virginia, the opioid addiction. We get professional athletes that had problems. They speak in front of over 6,000 people in 2019. And last year we went virtual and accessed over 150,000 people in 2020. A great way we talk about the problem of this terrible addiction. And this thing, if it just saves one life, it's well worth it. And I'm involved on the board with this. It's a 5-member board, but it's really driven by the wonderful work of Don Robinson. So talk about inspiration. I'll share a couple stories before I kick it back to you, Chris. Daily I'm inspired. I want to share with you Sherry Owens, who works in my Bridgeport store. She is literally the $1 million employee. 30 years ago, when I bought these stores, Sherry was going to leave, or did leave, to go work for a hotel. And I said, Sherry, if it doesn't work out, looked her in the eye and said, come back, would love to have you. And I'd only owned the store for a couple months. She goes there, it doesn't work out, she comes back. She is beloved in this community. I get a text probably once every 2 weeks on how wonderful she is and how wonderful that drive-through runs. She has made me millions of dollars, but if she never needs anything, she's just part of the family. For example, she'll say, hey, John, did you see my new car? Hey, hey, Sherry, let me make the car payment for you. And Sherry had an issue with a sciatic nerve problem. I said, Sherry, I will send you over to my physical therapist and get this fixed. I think my son actually took her over there, and 4 or 5 times I took care of it. Sadly, about a year ago, her father passed away, and I said, why is the funeral over at this place? Well, she has to make payments on the funeral. I said, I'll take care of it. But she is that important to me, and I care for her that much. Also, we have this, give you another story on Michael. Michael is a brilliant kid, but shy. So he comes to work for us, really to try to get him involved with other people a little bit better, because, he's such a smart kid. They loved him in Bridgeport. When he's not there, they'd all ask me, how's Michael doing? How's he doing? We took him around to our other stores, and he asked me for a reference to Virginia Tech. And I said, sure, I'd be happy to do it. And his father then sends me this message. It says, just shared his amazing reference. Quite frankly, your caring and articulate words misted me up. It's good for his self-esteem and confidence. I believe it has the power to change his mindset in a very positive way. So with that said, here's an example of, we do a lot with younger kids, and it is our goal for everyone to reach their potential. One final example, JD Owens, who is in essence runs my 40 stores for me, says, hey, so-and-so is buying a house. I said, hey, send him over my way. I sit down with them, find out what kind of down payment he has. I said, hey, I'll take you over to meet my banker, takes him over, and I'll help him with the down payment as well. I get this text from him just actually a couple days ago. I'm one step closer to buying the house. It's been accepted. My offer's been accepted. I want to thank you again. And it's been truly appreciated. But we try to definitely have a good relationship with our employees. There is a caveat on this house purchase. So I said, I need to come over for dinner, and you're not allowed to order DoorDash. So we certainly are happy about that. I will tell you also, I am inspired on a daily basis on some of the boards I'm on. I'd like to mention those to you. One is the MVB Bank. I'm a director on this board. The guy that is in charge, the CEO, is Larry Mazza. He's considered a 10x leader. We're into fintech. We have Credit Karma. And look at the returns since the pandemic. Of the 5,000 banks last year, we're number 7. A lot of it has to do with the great leadership of Larry. I'm also on a board up at college. And you know what it's like right now with private university. It is tough. Through Dr. Barry's leadership, whose actual brother went to Notre Dame, tremendous job, a great person to follow. And he could clearly lead a Fortune 500 company, but I'm blessed to work with him as well. So how have I grown to 40 stores? Pretty much try to have great habits personally and within the stores, consistency of effort. We've built some great teams through leadership and so forth. We definitely want to have the best leadership we can. It is crucial for me to have great store managers. Every store is run by a store manager, and it's crucial. We valued others in a high level of trust. So with that said, Chris, that's kind of my journey. I'm going to kick it back to you. And I know you have some questions. There might be some questions from the group on this journey.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Sean. Wow. The road less traveled, as they say. I would just want to remind the folks online that if you've got questions, please use the forum and submit them. And I'm going to ask a few questions to John, and then love to be able to hear your questions. So John, you pivoted pretty early in life, going from the stable environment of an accounting firm, and then going to the uncertain world of being an entrepreneur. For those out there that are maybe trying to think of the same thing, or they just haven't had the opportunity or maybe the nerve, what advice would you give them?
Everyone has a dream. Mine was really to own something. I just thought there was better leverage to try to own something. So that's one thing. Secondly, along the journey, don't give up. I mean, there are times where you wonder if it's really worth it, from a more stable environment, but it is worth it. So that's secondly, try not to give up. Certainly find something you enjoy doing. I know it's like you, Chris. I know you love leadership and enjoy doing it. Find something that you really enjoy doing. Other advice is just surround yourself with people you enjoy working with. You spend a lot of time with these people. We have a good group. We really do. There's a lot of laughs. We know when to be busy and so forth. I guess the last thing is make sure you make a good decision on the market. If you understand, is there a market out for what you want to do? If you want to own your own business, McDonald's was pretty stable. I knew there was a market. Even listening to you on Keurig, you almost created a market when you went out there and sold the Keurig. But with me, just make sure you understand the market. If not, you can work pretty hard, and it might be hard to generate the profit that you want.
Well, West Virginia, where you're at, I know you also have some stores in Western Pennsylvania and Western Maryland, but predominantly West Virginia was one of the last states to really get hit by the pandemic. And they're actually being recognized right now as one of the best states for the vaccination program. Can you maybe share with us some thoughts as to why that might be?
Right. Governor Justice has done a nice job as far as communication. First, the state of West Virginia spread out pretty well. So with that said, it helped initially, but he's on air every day talking about where we stand, okay? Secondly, what he was able to do is he was able to identify 5 areas within the state that he got vaccines out to quickly. And these 5 areas then shipped them out to mom and pop pharmacies, to other bigger places, to other clinics. So the distribution center was great. In addition, they brought in the National Guard to help work through this. So I guess the key was identifying those 5 areas, getting the vaccines out. They took the vaccines literally to the people. I've had my second shot. A lot of people, they're pretty much almost anyone can get a shot at this point now in West Virginia.
So many restaurants, John, have had to close their doors. Fortunately, drive-through was such an important part of your business before the pandemic, and it is your core business right now. How has the landscape changed in West Virginia with dine-in services, and how have you been able to survive and excel?
Good job. Good question. They've done studies, 100,000 restaurants will close. So a lot of people are affected. Obviously, they're trying to get as much aid out there as possible. So there's a lot closing. There's just a huge demand for our drive-throughs. People want safe, affordable food. So we are nonstop. I mean, typically we used to slow down about 2 o'clock, but it is going. But the landscape has changed in that there's just fewer places to eat. No doubt about it. We are starting to open up though. Even us personally, our lobbies are opening up on a rolling basis starting on the 7th of April. So it's fewer places to eat, and we have a core equity of drive-through, and we've benefited from it.
Well, another challenge that is kind of out there lingering is Congress has been considering imposing the $15 minimum wage
right
for workers in America. And I know you pay all of your employees in all 3 states well above the minimum wage, but how would a $15 minimum wage affect your business?
So the minimum wage in West Virginia is $8.25, in Pennsylvania it's $7.25, but our starting wage, like for example in Bridgeport's $9.50, $10 depending on where you are. So last year I used 2.1 million man hours. So a $1 increase is $2 million to the bottom line if you don't pass it along to the customers. But I am on a task force that actually is looking at what California does, because their wages are in the $16 range. So we'll have to be more efficient. We'll have to price smarter, sell hopefully the more profitable items, but it will be a transition. Even the article yesterday in the Wall Street Journal shows that a lot of people will lose their jobs if minimum wage goes up, especially the younger kids. So we ourselves will have to be more efficient.
Well, one of the other things that I think sometimes fast food chains get hit with is that they're not widely known for offering really healthy options. I don't know about you, but I love my Southwest salad with grilled chicken, and I think that's very healthy. Do you have any plans to maybe offer more healthier items on your menu?
There is a total team looking at that. Salads are off the menu right now because of simplification. They are coming back in some form. So those will be back on there, no doubt. But there is a team. McDonald's just tries to find out what consumers want. I don't know if you remember the McLean Deluxe, Chris.
Oh, yeah.
When we came out with that, we were selling like 4 or 5 a day. So some people talk they want healthy food, and they always don't eat it. But with that said, there is a team looking at that. I eat at McDonald's on a regular basis. I really do. But I have a pretty good balanced diet. And I'll tell you, if I eat too many fries, I don't mind getting on the treadmill for an extra 5 minutes. So because it's well worth it. But there is a team that's looking. They haven't told me exactly what it is, but I know they want to sell the most of whatever is out there.
So I want to start mixing in some of our questions from our viewers and listeners. So Frank Byrne from Madison, Wisconsin says, what have you done to address diversity, equity, and inclusion issues and social justice issues over the years, and especially recently in recognition of increased concern about these issues?
That's a great question. I will tell you, I have 40 stores and maybe 10 of our store managers are of color, and some of our greatest leaders are of color. All my top team, there's a lot of females in there. So as far as diversity, we definitely have that. They've just kind of risen to the top because they're the best. The SMSA in some of my stores has maybe 3 or 4% of color, but we have a lot of people working for us. We give them the best training as possible. So we've definitely reached out and we've trained these people. We love them. They're some of our better workers.
Okay. Sue Chambers from Dallas says, what do you like most about what you do?
Thanks, Sue. I tell you, I loved living in Dallas. I'll tell you that, getting up to that nice warm weather. I lived up at Hillcrest and Arapahoe. But with that said, I just enjoy going to work every day. I enjoy going to the restaurants. There are some days where I'm kind of, a little tired, but I get in there and I see everyone working so hard. I jump out of bed on the weekends to do work. I just enjoy working. Maybe it's because my to-do list is so long, and I typically work almost every day. And one thing that does happen is, as a leader, it could be a quick email that only takes me 2 minutes that can unlock hours for other people, answers they want. So to answer your questions, I love working in the restaurants with these people. I love being part of the gang, and so forth.
Mitch, when you get out of bed in the morning, what's the first thing you say?
So as we talked earlier about habits, BJ Fogg, who wrote Tiny Habits, says you just say these 8 words, it's going to be a great day. And firmly believe that. And ironically, when I talked to Chris's class, we were talking about stress. And I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, my stress level is pretty low, like 3 or 4, because I have great people working for me. And I just ran across a nasty day a couple of weeks ago. So I was wondering, maybe I shouldn't have said that. But I love working, and I just love. There's just, my job, quite honestly, is never done. But I enjoy everything I do, especially the work with the community and so forth.
So Marty Whalen, who was an Inspired Leadership Fellow in our first cohort, has got a good question. First of all, he says, it's good to see someone from Pangbourne make good. Your servant leadership is admirable. How do you give your people a sense of hope during the pandemic? I mean, how do you allay their fears of being laid off and making their car payments?
So I remember Marty well, the lacrosse player from Pangbourne. So Marty, thanks for the question. So what happened, quite honestly, is this pandemic hit. Now I'll walk you through some of the things that we did back in March. So I joke about the $450 car payment. So I buy these stores, and typically you pay them off in 7 years, and things are going great in March. And all of a sudden, our business goes down like 30%. And I have a $450,000 loan payment every month. So I'm doing stress tests to make sure we're okay. And so the government comes up with these PPP money, and we apply for it and we get it. And I kind of work through this bonus program with them. Marty says, if we get FTEs and we get to keep the money, we'll share it with you. But there was so much fear in their voices when I talked to these guys. They wanted the bonus pay right off the bat. So we gave everyone bonus pay of an extra $1 when they're working. So that helped them from the financial side. But we made sure we are safe in these stores. We have plexiglass up between us and the customers. We have good habits. We social distance in the restaurant. We wear gloves. So we did that. If there is a break or someone gets sick and has COVID, we immediately shut down the store down and clean it. We do contact testing to find out who's been exposed. So that was a concern back in March, Marty. It's kind of subsided now. I think people feel a lot more comfortable, but they were concerned. going back to what we did with COVID as a business, we were just on calls every morning, Zoom calls with my top leadership team, talking about what we're doing. I mean, the facts were coming at us so much. We didn't know what was happening. We thought, we're down 30% in sales as we go another 30. We pretty much shut down the lobbies, some of which was by government order. So we did that. Communication was great. I would visit the stores to find out what was going on, and so forth. So that was our primary things that we did during COVID: increase communication, made sure our employees were safe, make sure the customers were safe, and so forth. And McDonald's Corporation did a wonderful job in communication at the top level with what was going on. There were almost daily calls with them as well, national McDonald's, on this is what's transpiring, this is what we need to do.
So somebody once said, a great leader doesn't build the business. A great leader builds an organization, because it's
Right.
the organization that builds the business. So do you have some guiding principles that you kind of that you stick to in terms of being a leader?
So as far as my team, I want them involved. I really do, so they feel part of the process. So as much information as I can get to them, we do. Financial information they get, they're part of the decision process. So when the big issues come up, we all get together on those Tuesday at 2. Every Tuesday at 2, we get together and we talk about, the business, and they make a lot of the decisions, and they take that information out to the store and deliver. So number one is I like to get them involved. There's no doubt about that. I would say that's probably the biggest guiding principle. And obviously you got to be grateful for what they do. I mean, I have kids getting up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning to come to work, and so we are very appreciative of what they do. I will tell you, last year, of our top 86 employees, our salaried employees, we only lost 3, and 1 was to illness. So we try to take care of them the best we can.
That's great. You might recognize this name. James Navant from Asheville wants to know, can you talk about the importance of your family helping you get started, and what was it like to work with your family?
Yeah, so that's my nephew who was the captain of the baseball team. So thanks for the question, James. I will tell you, a hidden benefit was working with my father and my mother. So I moved from Dallas to Bridgeport, and they came with me. And there was no place to live, so we get this small apartment. I'm living with my parents at age 30, and my dad's coming to work with me every day at 7 o'clock. He goes home about 5 or 6, and I stay there until about 8 or 9, and that was great. But the problem, Chris, is I'd get home at 8 o'clock, and all I want to do was talk about McDonald's. So I got to shut this thing off a little bit. But with that said, it's been a wonderful thing. So my sister, who says, hey, meet someone in Dallas that owns a McDonald's, she does that. My sister now owns 7 McDonald's in Asheville and Hickory, and her husband, who is a orthodontist, quit his job to help her out. So I'm very proud of my family, and McDonald's is a family event. There's no doubt about it. Hopefully my daughter and my son are my retirement plan, and I can turn it over to them.
Well, Kailani Coleman wants to know, how important is being environmentally sound to your business?
It is important. There's no doubt about it. I mean, a lot of this stuff does come from McDonald's at the highest level. So the environment is important. We definitely follow all the protocols. As far as our trash removal, some of it goes certain places and so forth. So I have to defer to McDonald's. They make sure that we're following in line here. They built a McDonald's in Chicago that was net zero, that had net zero based on the way it was built and the emissions and so forth. So I think they're looking to do as much as they can. We have a lot of LED lights that are more efficient, and actually they work out well in our stores.
So you've been an inspiration to a lot of young people, whether it's baseball clinics, but tell us a little bit more about the ACT program. I think that was something that when you were preparing for college, that really you dug into, and that's kind of been your hallmark in West Virginia, hasn't it?
Yeah, thanks. So for me to get into Notre Dame, I needed a good score, and I studied so hard so that when I took the math, I'd seen every single question. So it helped me get a decent score and get into Notre Dame. But so what we did is I went to the high schools and said, hey, there's a promised scholarship in West Virginia, and a lot of these kids can't get it because they can't get the minimum score in math. So I said, I'll design a program. We write away to Princeton and get old tests. We get the actual tests and we try to find commonalities. So about 6 times a year, I put on a program for 3 hours. And these kids come to it and we walk through what we consider is going to be on the test. So I've had, as I mentioned, 3,000 kids. And what we do, Chris, is probably 50 kids a year will get the promised scholarship as a result of this class that might not have gotten it. So 50 times 19 is about $1 million. So instead of writing checks to high schools, we're helping kids get better scores to get into honors dorms and so forth. So it has really worked well. I teach about half the class and someone else teaches the other half. When they register, they get some pre-work, they do the work, they come to the class and they get old tests. The number one way to improve their scores is to do tests. So, I was just out a couple weeks ago and this parent comes up to me and says, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but you helped my daughter, get the promised scholarship. So it works pretty well. And I would like to take this 10X, how can I make this better, exposed to more people in West Virginia? I do go to high schools occasionally and teach it. A lot of kids have come to my house for personal tutoring because I kind of know the tricks on the ACT, but it's been good. It's kind of the hallmark of what we do, and it's been great for the kids. It's a win-win for everyone.
So when you think back, what do you think was maybe the biggest setback that you ever had that you had to overcome?
That's a good question. I've had some speed bumps. I haven't had huge knock me off setbacks. I'm going to walk you through a financial decision I had to make on one. There was a store down in Flatwoods that the guy wanted to sell it to me for $1.7 million, and I thought it was worth $1.3 million based on every number I saw. And we just couldn't reach a deal, and I say no. And he brings someone else in, and immediately they pay $1.7 million. So I then eventually bought that store for $2.8 million. So that was a bad move on my part, but it taught me something. I am willing to pay the price for these McDonald's, even if I have to pay an extra 1 year of cash flow to get them. So from that Flatwood incident, I learned, when these 20 some stores became available, they might have been overpriced by a couple $1 million, but I wanted to get in, I wanted to own the asset. So that setback wasn't major. I haven't had anything just completely knock me off. I told my wife said, you're pretty focused. I am trying to continue to move forward, not get derailed by too many things.
Well, certainly the pandemic is a setback that all of your company employees have had to overcome. How important is your accounting background? I mean, you majored in accounting, how important is your accounting background to going and becoming an entrepreneur?
That's a good question. So working at Arthur Young, my 4th year, I probably worked like 800 hours overtime because we were doing different. So I got in the system of working. I understood how to try to get organized, be organized. So I buy these McDonald's and we actually have to submit financial statements on the 20th of each month. And what happens is I have my own team that puts it together internally. Then I review it. They send it to me. It's based on color-coded numbers on what we're off. I send it back to them, and we submit them ourselves. So it's helped me understand deals better. It helped us internally. We do our own financial statements, so we have them out. Our people can review them and make quicker decisions. But just the financial, typically if someone else files your financial statements, you have to pay, $400 a month to them times 16 times 12. That's 190,000. I just pay, maybe 120,000 of people working in my office putting them together. So it's benefited me working at Arthur Young, being a little bit more organized, understanding the financial information better, making better decisions, and actually filing the financial statements.
So Rocco Aguinaga from Chicago, Cook County, said, love this. What are some books that you have taken the time to read more than once? And I know that you read at least 30 books a year.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now I'm reading Think Again by Adam Grant. I love Adam Grant. Daniel Pink is great. Coil is great. The Culture Code is great. Anything with Tim Ferriss, Tools of Titan, great. Energy Bus, off the chart. If you own a business, you got to have everyone read Energy Bus because it gets everyone excited. So any of those authors, I love. I love Tim Ferriss. I love Daniel Pink. I love Adam Grant. Sometimes that is a very good question. I'll read a book, and then when I'm riding my bike, I'll listen to it, just to make sure I pick up everything. I'm trying to pick up little things. Like, for example, in Think Again, Adam Grant first talks about the first test or first answer fallacy. Everyone thought you always go with your first thought. They actually have a study in that book that talks about rethink your answer. So always don't mark the first thing down. But he also talks about what is great for team, what builds great teams. And in that book, he talks about psychological safety. People have to feel safe to give ideas, safe to present different things. And another concept that's coming out of these books is called the peak end rule that pertains to my business. Customers remember the peak of the transaction and how it ends. You go to Disney and they grade how you do every hour. It's a lot, you get a different grade. It's how was the peak of going to Disney and how did it end? So we adopt that philosophy.
So Dan Pink, I show the puzzle of motivation to all of my classes, and he talks about the challenge with incentives, that sometimes incentives are a disincentive to the creative process.
Yeah.
I know that you've had a couple of really successful consumer promotions involving stock and something else. Can you share that with the audience?
I will. When we bought Bridgeport in 90, we opened Shinston in 92. And when I'm working in Bridgeport every day, everyone comes up to me and says, "Hey, I eat here every day." So I said, "Hey, when we open Shinston, we're gonna have a contest to see who can eat there the most consecutive days." We called it the Shinston Streak, and everyone got a card, and we had this special arch punch every time they ate there to do it. Now, we thought this thing would go on like for 30 or 60 days. It went on, the Shinston Streak, and this thing got national attention. It went on for 6 years. People ate at McDonald's for 6 straight years. Chris, they could not leave for weddings that were outside the range. They couldn't leave for funerals. It was a big deal. So eventually one guy broke his hip and they all decided to stop. They probably were happy to stop, but they got $1 a day for every day they ate there, but it became kind of their life. I talked to a lot of the guys that were doing it, and their kids were saying, man, they just love to come to McDonald's. So that worked out. Secondly, in Bridgeport, people say, I eat here so much, I should own stock in this place. So we had a contest to see who could eat there the most. It was like in March. And they would win 3 shares of McDonald's stock. And McDonald's stock, I think, was selling for 33 at the point. There were like 2 people that spent $500 each. And so I gave them both 3 shares of stock. We had a shareholders meeting and everything. It was really neat. But so they had this, McDonald's sends out this thing that says, if you have a good marketing idea, send it in. So I sent that in. And this was actually for ad agencies. And I came in like 3rd in the country on this thing. Leo Burnett had the best idea. Someone else had number 2. And then this little guy from Bridgeport, I owned stock in the place, was number 3. So I went up against the big giants for that idea. But I like to listen to what they say. Another book, Moments, anything by Daniel Heath is good. And the reason I bring it up, one of our goals in our restaurant is to get to yes. We just want to get to yes with the customer. I picked that up out of that book because they have a Yes Academy. So I try to read as much and put it into real life existence in the stores.
So I have, just so the audience knows, I've got some pretty large classes, and I make Dan Coyle's The Culture Code mandatory reading. And in fact, we're going to review it one of the classes tomorrow. It's a great book. And if you go even to YouTube and type in Dan Coyle Culture Code, you'll see an interview with him where he kind of takes you through it. The other one I'd strongly recommend is Bill McDermott's book. He was a former president of SAP, CEO, Winner's Dream, blue collar guy from Long Island. It's an incredible read. And, I think one of the things I've learned along the ways, and I think you probably have learned, John, is that no doesn't mean no, I don't like your idea. No doesn't mean no, I don't want to buy from you. No is an invitation to a dialogue. And you had that happen with you with a basket of fries.
Yeah. So my wife and I are driving to a Notre Dame game. This is before Starbucks was really popular. She said, we have to stop at Starbucks. We have to stop at Starbucks. So I was thinking, what is our best product at its best state? And I thought, what about fries hot out of the vat? So this was probably 1995. I come up with a basket of fries. I said, we're going to sell a basket of fries hot out of the vat. And I get clearance from the local McDonald's people. It's okay to do. Okay, so this guy comes in second day. I said, how'd you hear about this? Well, I came here yesterday. These are hot fries. These are awesome. We had cheese with it and everything. And this thing has been killed at least 6 times by McDonald's because they said this is not part of the standard menu. Then I have to write the president of McDonald's, put together a business case. And I said, this thing is this works. This just works. So it's in about 2,000 stores now. If you are primarily near Pittsburgh, it's in there. It's called the basket of fries. And it's worked well during the pandemic. You can get 2 double cheeseburgers and a basket of fries for $9 and so forth. So it has worked well, but I got no a lot on this one. I finally broke through. It's out there. I hope it's to stay.
So, John, I hit you with what is one of the greatest challenges you've had to overcome. Maybe let me flip the coin there a little bit. And what is it about your life and about your family, your business that you're most proud of?
It kind of goes back to James's question, about the family. It's been fun for me and for my family. My father was just, he and I got in this thing together and did it together. That was a wonderful experience. He lived until he was 86, and he'd come in, worked until he died. So that was great. That's a great accomplishment. And have my sister in and be so successful down in Asheville. But I will tell you what is really nice is just building a team. We have built a team, and it certainly has worked. So it's nice to see them progress and be successful to kind of get the it factor.
Well, we're kind of wrapping up here, and I know you maybe have some final thoughts that you'd love to be able to leave with
let
our
me.
audience.
And hopefully that is being shared okay. Okay. Some just final thoughts is, just thinking about this, you got to be kind. I mean, there is no doubt my best leadership is ability to be kind with our customers and with our crew. But I would be remiss without mentioning this because I've watched you closely the last 3 or 4 years. Your leadership style is just off the chart. I call it, I don't even know if it can be called anything, but I call it, he is there for you leadership. And I just want to thank you. You're there big time when you're needed, and you deliver big time. And you're a quick study. I sent some stuff to you. The comments you come back are tremendous within a short period of time. And I joke about the 6 degrees of separation with Kevin Bacon. I call it the Chris Stevens 2 degrees of separation at Notre Dame. You're within 2 degrees of knowing something wonderful Chris has done for you. So I personally want to thank you. But here's an example of what Chris will do or is willing to do. I tell him after, they're talking to his class, I need to get my people in front of you to talk about leadership because, you're just brilliant. And he says, I will drive to West Virginia 7 hours away and talk to them. I mean, I was flabbergasted. And he's said this 3 times. I go, Chris, you're too valuable. I am coming to you. But to willing to do whatever it takes to get it done and drive 7 hours to meet with my people, I can't thank you enough. But again, thanks for having me today. It's been a real honor, and I'm certainly excited about what's going forward for all of us.
Thank you, John. That's incredibly kind of you. When I think about your leadership style, I think about Lou Holtz, and he had 3 rules for his football team. First was just do the right thing. And the second was just be the very best that you can be. Don't compare yourself to anybody. And the third one was show people that you care. Show people that you care. And that's what you do. Maya Angelou said, if you're going to remember what you said, if you're going to remember what you did, everyone will remember how you made them feel. And I know what I've heard in terms of your organization. I know your representation in terms of the McDonald's boards and things of that nature. So it's truly a pleasure to have you share your journey with us. Thank you, John.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
So I want to also thank a few other people. I want to thank our audience for taking the time to be with us here today. Mary Scott and her ThinkND team, and certainly our Inspired Leadership Initiative team. And again, if you want to learn more about the Inspired Leadership Initiative, go to ili.nd.edu. We're going to have an exploration session on April the 8th. And we'd love to have you join us. And if you just send us an email, we'll get you registered for it. So next week, please join us for another episode of ThinkND and Inspired Conversations. And you are not going to want to miss this one. He's a very, very special man, the President Emeritus, Reverend Father Edwin Monk Malloy. So Father Malloy served as president of Notre Dame for 18 years after Father Hesburgh retired from 1987 to 2005. Approaching his 80th birthday on this coming May the 3rd, Father Malloy still resides in Soren Hall and is still teaching a freshman seminar in addition to other responsibilities. And he has many, many other responsibilities on the board and many other board positions as well. What you may not know is Father Malloy is still ranked as one of the top 100 high school basketball players of all time in the Metro Washington, D.C. area. And that includes Metro Virginia, Maryland, D.C., and it includes people like Elgin Baylor, the late Elgin Baylor, and Dave Bing. He's a truly, truly special man. And he's that area is regarded as one of the hotbeds of talent for basketball. So thank you again for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next week for another inspiring conversation with Father Monk Malloy. Thanks again, John Ebert.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you, guys.